I'm James, that's Katie, and of course that makes this episode 53 of the Circles and Squares PlayStation podcast. And Kate, you know what? We usually start the show off with housekeeping, but we got to skip that for an immediate segment within a segment. It's the official Circles and Squares Elden Ring check-in. I think it's the second time we've talked about it on the show officially now. So how's your Elden Ring experience? And how are you, by the way? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's nice to be here as always. My answer it's a two-part. How am I and how's Elden Ring? So I spent the weekend homesick, recording this on Sunday evening. So Saturday, Sunday, I've been, doing the whole wearing my comfy, just like drinking lots of tea, hanging out at home, canceling my plans. Which sounds like a negative. However, I've played a lot of Elden Ring because hey, I don't have to work out. I don't have to do all these errands. I'm just going to sit at my computer and play Elden Ring. And honestly, being sick is not too
Not
bad.
too bad in 2022, and you can play
Yeah,
when you can play. That's
when
true.
you can play Elden Ring.
Yeah.
It's been amazing. I beat Radahn this morning.
Okay, so I've heard that's quite an
Um
accomplishment. I'm definitely not that far. I feel like I'd kept up with you pretty well up until
mhm.
last time, but I've definitely fallen off a little. So that sounds impressive. What level are you now? How many hours have you played?
I'm at the 83 hour mark. I
God,
think
okay,
I'm like
you've doubled me. Then you've
I
doubled
think
me.
I'm like high 70s maybe. Radahn gave me quite a few levels, which was great.
Right, right.
But anyway, that is a cool fight. I'm going to maybe naively assume that that's like kind of roughly the halfway mark. It seems like maybe some significant things have happened, and he's actually such a cool story and like plot point
Yeah,
to do with Radahn and the whole Radahn festival. So it kind of felt like the game's been leading up to that for a little bit.
very interesting. Where I'm at, I've actually never heard of Rodon. I just
Ah,
I'm pretty sure
well,
I
he's a
hadn't.
he's a pretty cool guy. Let me
Yeah,
tell
I'm
you,
sure he
he's
is.
a big deal.
Sure,
He's
he's
got
gonna
a
probably beat the shit
he's
out of me a few
he's the
times.
guy in the trailer with the ridiculously small horse. And let me tell you,
Oh.
this like the big like red mane, like liony
Mm-hmm.
kind of motif
Mm-hmm.
guy with the tiny, teeny tiny little horse. And let me tell you, this is one of my favorite FromSoft things ever. There is an actual reason to explain how he rides a ridiculously small horse compared to how big his body is. There's a reason for that. Like,
Okay.
it is dumb, it is silly, but, like, there's an explanation that they make sure to tell you.
Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna look out for that in like specifically as
Yeah.
I play. For those
Mhm.
who are wondering where I am at the what's it, Lucernia, Lake Lucernia. There's the
Oh,
school
okay.
there, like what's it
Yeah.
called, the academy,
The
and I'm at
academy,
the
yep.
room where there's all the casters and the pot in the left hand corner. And anyone else that's
Yeah.
been there, you know that room sucks.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
I
where
know
I'm at.
yeah, you told me the other day that you were there, and I knew exactly what that room looks like. That is a cool area. It's
Oh,
terrifying.
I like it. It's cool. It's
Um,
a nice armor
but
set
it
I found in there, right under a tombstone.
yeah, as you put
Yeah.
your armor, yeah.
It was very clean, surprisingly, where I found it. But yeah, looking good. I finally feel like I'm at the part I where I'm like my character finally looks cool. You know, like I don't have
Yeah.
just sort of some generic leather pants and like a frying pan on my head or something. Like I actually have like a cool skull thing and robes that make it look like I'm not too scared to post a screenshot here or there of my character. Man, some of them
Yeah.
are so cool. You see online now that people are kind of finishing the game and getting towards like the end of
Mhm.
it. You see some of those armors people post, and you're like, "Holy crap!"
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same, like, I feel like I look cool, but I also feel, like, equally as important, I have a bunch of, like, really dumb-looking outfits that sometimes I'll just wear for fun, and, like, if I ever like, I have outfits set up for, like, this is me traveling on a good day, and then, like, "Oh, I'm gonna, like, meet a friend." This is my, like, dumbass outfit for meeting a friend.
Right. Okay.
Um
Nice. We'll check in again next episode on Elden Ring. It's going to become a rotating start of the show, I think. Elden Ring check in for at least a couple of weeks.
I love it,
So,
yeah.
but anyway, we'll get into the rest of the show here now. Of course, we'll get into housekeeping first, which is that we combined our top 25 favorite games each into one mega tier list of the top 25 official Circles and Squares games of all time on our last episode. And so I definitely urge you to go and watch that one, especially if you have the chance. If you usually are a podcast listener, it is a good one to watch on video as well, because we have the tier list sort of up as we're working on it. And I think the visual really helps alongside the audio if you can. So go show that video some views if you can, if you're interested in looking at that. And look out for the news show to make a regular return next week. We're sort of mixing those together this week. It's really a throwback episode for episode
Yeah,
53.
this is a classic OG Circles and
It's
Squares
before we split the
episode today.
shows, we used to do
Mhm.
this all the time, but it's going to be the games we're playing to start the show off. Second segment is the news segment of the show, which is going to be very big this week because we're talking about the new PlayStation Plus revamp. And then we're closing the show, as we always do, with listener mail. And we got a really good question this week about challenges and puzzles in games. So really looking forward to that at the end of the show. But let's start off with the games we've been playing. And Kate, for PlayStation Plus this month, we both played some of the amazing kart racer that is Sonic Team Racing. Now, you played this multiplayer a little bit,
I did,
and
yeah.
I took an interesting route, which was that I actually beat the single player campaign by myself. Something I'm partially regretting doing now, considering how long it took. But I did
Right.
it. I have a weird compulsion to beat stuff. Anyway, what did you think of Sonic Team Racing? I know we're giving it a little bit of flack, but I mean, it's not terrible.
You know what? So yeah, like you mentioned, I have the bias of I only played multiplayer, and I think this game benefits heavily
Mm,
from a multiplayer aspect because what makes this unique as a kart racer as opposed to something like Mario Kart is it's teams of three. And so like they have mechanics set up specifically for like when you're following behind one of your teammates, you can like you go in there like stream, I guess is what it's called.
yeah, it's like you
And so like
draft behind them, sort of
yeah,
thing,
and
right?
so, like, it actually speeds you up a little bit, and there's also, like, mechanics for, like, giving your item pickups to your teammates instead of using them yourself, and then they get a little bit stronger when you swap them, and so I think those mechanics are really fun to play with someone. So, we played 2 cups, like, granted, we didn't play a hell of a lot of the game,
Right,
but we
right.
played 2 cups, and we played the 1st cup, on opposing teams, and that was kind of fun, but we played the 2nd cup on the same team, and we had a much better experience because it was like, "Oh,
Hmm.
like, let's take the right path and, like, go at" one person's, like, right behind there, "Take the right path, we'll go on the stream," and, like, "Oh, I've got this item, like, do you want it?" And so there was that kind of, like I could see it being actually, like, a neat strategy to try
Yeah,
to, like, play around those, like, multiplayer aspects, more so than just something in Mario Kart where, like, you just finish 1st and 2nd because, like, you're just racing, but it's kind of
exactly.
irrelevant to what the other person's doing.
Yeah, I remember we used to play Mario Kart that way, especially when we were younger. Of like, okay, we got first and
Yeah.
second. Like, let's
Yeah.
like make sure we're defending this. Like, I won't drop a banana from first, but if you're in second, like, make sure you shoot at
Mhm.
the enemies and stuff like that. So it's cool that this game sort of takes that concept because I'm sure we're not the only people to have done stuff like that and actually give it sort of that team dynamic, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Like, I was just hearing you talk about the way you guys work together doing that. Like, I think it would be really cool if there was a way, even if you played online or something, where like all the teams there was like no CPUs, and so you were literally a
Mhm.
team. Like, that actually sounds like a really cool concept.
Yeah. That would be really neat, and you could put you in a voice chat, like, just with your other 2, like, players, like, that would be genuinely really good, and on the idea of getting rid of the NPCs, I'm just gonna tell you, the NPCs are wild in this game, like, I don't know how it assigns, like, how each character is good, but, like, Mario Kart did that too, I feel like it just randomly assigns, like, "Okay,
Yeah.
you're kinda shit, like, you're okay, you're pretty good," because they tend to wind up in, like, similar placings at the end of every match,
Hmm.
but it was so funny whatever happened, like, my team so Zane and I, my buddy and I, we came like 1st and 2nd every match because we just played on normal and like it's not an extremely difficult game on normal in like just free play. And my teammates would come like, yeah, I'm at like 4th and 7th. They were pretty decent. And then Zane had Amy and Sonic on his team, and they would come like bottom of the table every single time. They were just such garbage. They let him down, and my teammates say like 4th, no problem. His teammates being like 9th and like 11th and
That's
just
brutal.
consistently shit. And he was like, "This is so unfair."
Because he's not
Um,
losing by any, like, the way the standings work, I guess we didn't really explain, is like your
right.
team finishes based on every, like, first is worth a certain amount of points, second's worth a certain amount of points, but then your
Mhm.
team's three totals get added together, so you can get completely tanked. Like, this happened to me in single player a couple
Yeah.
times too, where I'm like, okay, I'm in this cup with my team, like, we're trying to beat this challenge to beat this part of the story mode, and it's like, well, I came in first, but my team came in like one middle of the pack and one at the bottom. And I'm like, well, I guess I lose.
Yeah, I guess you're fucked, yeah, so, like which is, like, a cool thing when you're all playing together, but sucks when your NPC's just, like, just terrible and there's nothing you can do to make them better.
Hmm, hmm.
But it was really funny too, and in the, like, screen after the match, it, like, shows the points kind of, like, filling up in, like, your little, like, reciprocal, and, like, it shows each person's points, like, "Zoop, there's Sonic," and, like, "Boop, there's Amy," and it's, like, fucking
Right,
nothing,
nothing. Yeah.
like, comparison. And so, like, it just really gives you a clear, like, that person's not pulling their weight.
Hmm, hmm. How did you feel about the
Um,
game's controls and like the items and stuff like that? Like to me, I got really used to it. Like it's really generous with the drifting. I feel
yeah.
like you can drift any
Mhm.
corner you want. You can drift on straightaways. Like it's super easy to do that kind of thing. Like the items, I felt like some of them were. I mean, they're just kind of what you expect, like pretty standard, right? I think the cool thing about the items is just like the missile gets upgraded if you pass it to your teammates. So there's
Mhm.
incentive to actually use those mechanics. But the driving to me is definitely like, I mean, it's weird to compare kart racer games driving, but to me, Mario Kart just feels that little bit more like you're actually kind of stuck to the road and you have a bit more control. And this is very slippery and sort of, yeah, drift focused, I would say.
Yeah, so what I think would make this interesting if you wanna play it, like, slightly above casually, is the team mechanics. I don't think you're gonna get a lot out of it playing solo, because in something like Mario Kart, you have a little bit more of, like, a crunchy mechanic to play with, and, like, their skill ceiling, I think, on the actual racing is higher,
Hmm,
versus
definitely.
this game, like like you said, it's very forgiving. I mean, there's obviously, like, ways that you would be able to improve, but I don't think it's to the caliber that Mario Kart offers. But what I think is interesting in a competitive sense for this game is those team mechanics, and so I think, like, it would be cool to have this game show up in, like, a tournament somewhere, even just, like, get some
It would
buddies
be cool,
together.
wouldn't it?
Get, like, 12 buddies and, like, have a little tournament, because I think it really would feel like you could succeed based on strategy more so in this game, whereas Mario Kart, so you'd succeed more so on pure skill.
Hmm,
But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like it's cool. It's got some really good ideas, but it's definitely a lot more simplified just in the way the game feels to control.
hmm, hmm. So I want to tell you a bit about the single player mode because my experience
Mhm.
definitely, I think, wasn't. I mean, I love kart racing games, right? Which is why I
Yeah.
decided I was going to play this, and I didn't really want to play multiplayer, so I decided I was going to do the story, and I for some reason it just compelled me. Like it was a really good podcast game, or I was watching a hockey game or whatever, and would kind of play this in the background. But I noticed some really weird stuff about the single player, which to me felt like super underbaked. Like there's not enough courses. So it's split into worlds, right? Like if you're playing like Super Mario World, you'll have like World
Mhm.
1, World 2, and there's like levels within
Yeah.
that. So this
Yeah,
game
1,
has that.
1, 1, 2, yeah.
Exactly. This game has that. And something that I really like about it is that the different challenges you're kind of moving along the map are all there's some variety to them, right? Like it's not all just racing. Some of them are like um there's like elimination races, so at a certain point
Oh,
the
okay.
team with the least combined score will get eliminated. So it's like even if you're in second, if your team's sucking, I know that's a frustrating thing, but at the same time, it's like in theory
Right.
kind of cool.
It's a cool idea.
Yeah, it's in theory kind of cool. And there's other ones where there's like these robots on the track and you have to shoot them with the missiles you get. And so you're, doing like time trial kind of stuff like that too. And so there's some nice variety. But what I began to notice once I got sort of halfway through is that these courses are repeating in later worlds. Like you'd be playing the same track
Uh,
again, but it's mirrored this time, or that this time instead of doing a normal race, you're playing the same track, but it's a time trial, or there's sort of a like a boss character you need to race, and it just sort of to get really repetitive because in other kart races, it's like the first cup it just has four races, and then you go to the next world, and it's like a different
4
theme.
4 new races,
Right,
yeah.
for a new race. And not even just that, but also going back to like Mario World, if you have that game, you're in the first world and it's like the Mushroom Kingdom, second world underwater, third world it's a desert.
Mhm.
So these world maps are also themed towards different
Okay.
weather types and biomes. So I kind of realized this when I was in the desert and there's like a sand level I'm racing on. But then because it's reusing the same courses every time, the world maps are not really themed towards anything other than
Right.
just being like a background that you're sort of moving your car along. Like it would be really cool if there was four different desert levels and you got to race them in the desert, but it's really just ended up being a background for like
Right,
whatever
it's just
type of.
incredibly, like, not cohesive.
Yeah, it really felt like it was missing that. Like it was
Do
almost
you
like they didn't have enough tracks or
Yeah, do you think maybe that was intentional and then they just realized that they had half the amount of tracks they needed and, like,
no.
ran out of money,
I mean,
like,
I could be a lot
to
of things,
throw it
right?
in?
It could be a lot of
Yeah.
things. It could be that they just hoped a lot of people wouldn't mind about it. Maybe it was focused to the story. Like there's little cutscenes where like Sonic will come and say something before the race, and there is like a story. But I mean, I skipped over all of it. I wasn't about to care too much about
What? You can't tell me the Sonic Team Racing
No,
lore?
no, I'm sorry, I can't. But it was just kind of disjointed and felt kind of like this could just be a menu of like races that I need to fight. Like it didn't really need a whole world map and whatnot. And I don't know, it
Mhm.
just felt like really underdone to me. And I think like if I had have played it, you can play it multiplayer too. And I think maybe had you go through it on like the hardest setting with like a teammate or like two people playing with you, it could be maybe more fun than I had, but. I think I was a victim of like this isn't the greatest single player plus playing by yourself. You know,
Mhm.
pretty average to me. Pretty
Yeah,
average.
I mean, it's never good when you walk away from a game and your statement was, I felt like a victim."
Right, right, yeah.
Yeah, that's usually not good. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's one of those games where it's a fun PS Plus game because it's like a fun night of couch co-op to play with a
Mhm.
friend. Am I gonna go out and buy this game or play more of it? Probably not.
Yeah, fair, fair. But I mean,
Um,
yeah, like you said, it's fun for PS Plus. It's fun like if you're having people over, you don't, you want to play some game, like you don't have a Nintendo Switch or something, you don't have another game like this, like it's fun for a night. I think you could have a good time. Um,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Okay. Well, I think there's one last pinnacle of Sonic Team Racing that we haven't touched on yet, but I know this was the main thing that you told me about that encouraged me to play was
Okay.
actually the voice lines in this game.
Oh
This
my
dialogue,
god.
you might not have gotten into the lore, but my god, is the dialogue just fantastic in this game. So,
It gets so repetitive, Kate.
it's so repetitive. So, no matter what you're doing, as you're racing, the characters are constantly just spewing, just vomiting voice
They
lines
need
at
you to
you,
know they're
whether
on your team. They're like, "I'm coming up on your
oh,
slipstream. Like, get me a boost."
yeah. So your teammates are just constantly telling you things, you're constantly saying things, every person you drive by or every item you interact with has some, like, voice line, and they're so cheesy and so funny, and I can imagine after more than 2 hours of the game, it's horrific.
Oh my
But for the
god.
first 2 hours, it's hilarious.
Well, that's one of the reasons I told you I played a lot with like a hockey game on or something or a podcast because I just
Mhm.
wanted to mute the voices.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. It reminded me of, that vampire game,
Yeah,
if you
right.
remember, of, like, running down a corridor, and he's like, "I gotta get out of here," and it's like, the only way you can go is to run down this straight corridor, and you're, like, running as fast as you can, he's like, "I'm not gonna make it, I gotta go," and, like, he just doesn't stop. But anyway, I have prepared for fun for you, a quick 5-point
Oh
quiz.
god, okay.
Just because after playing the game, like, we laughed at a couple lines that we heard, and then I wanted to see, what other lines we maybe missed out on, not experiencing all the characters
Sure.
in all of its glory. And so I've got 5 lines, and I just wanna see if you can match up which
Oh, who says
character
what?
says
Okay, let's
each
do it.
line.
Let's do it.
Um, so here's the first line, and also it's just fun for you guys at home just to see the caliber of some of these things here. So the first one is, "Road schmoes, I ain't slowing down."
Holy shit. Okay, that's gonna be
Who
Shadow
do you
because
think says
it's
that?
really edgy, right? Like he's
Shadow?
yeah, it's gotta be
Okay.
Shadow. And he's also a speed character, like we didn't talk about. There's different like speed or heavy or
Alright.
what. Yeah.
Alright, yeah, yeah, that's pretty, good guess, but you're wrong, it's Knuckles.
Okay,
The
okay.
second edgiest character.
Yeah.
Alright, this next one is, "Mama told me there'd be days like this." What kind of
What?
thing to say is that?
Mama told
M
me?
Mama told me there'd be days like this.
Which character has a mom?
I don't know. Do any of them canonically have
Um,
family?
I mean, that's a good question. There's probably answers to that question that I'm not going to investigate.
Right.
I
Maybe
will
if you'd
say,
listened to the lore of the game, this is what you missed out on.
it must be a character that I never played as because I haven't heard that line. So I'm gonna guess.
Okay.
There's a lot of characters I never played as though. That's the problem. I'm gonna go with Big the cat.
Oh, that's actually a good guess. It was Rouge.
Oh damn,
Yeah.
that was my
So,
next
alright.
guess. That was
This is
my
a tough quiz, but I think this one maybe you'll get. It's, "I can feel those G's, thanks." Like when someone gives you a speed boost.
Okay, okay. That's gonna be ooh, I'll say it's Tails because he's a scientist.
You are correct. You are correct, it's
All right.
tails. Okay, so pulling it back, see if you can go even. Your next line is, "Ouch, right in the kisser." My personal favorite line,
Oh man,
honestly.
yeah. They must have had a lot of thought behind that line. I'll go
I'll
with
tell you, this is a real fan favorite.
in the
I'll give you a
kisser.
hint.
I'll say
Right
that's
in the
Robotnik.
kisser. Oh, are you sure? Sure? It's a real fan favorite, this
I
character.
mean, yeah, I'll go with Robotnik. I have no idea.
Okay, it's Vector, the crocodile, I wanna
Yeah,
say.
damn it, from Sonic
Yeah,
Heroes.
that guy everybody knows.
Yeah.
And then one last one, uh, "So long, suckers."
Oh, that's Sonic.
Yeah,
Am I right?
that's
Okay.
Sonic.
Okay. I
Yeah,
did play
that's the
Sonic a little
classic
bit. Yeah, I
Sonic.
remember that. Okay.
Mhm.
Not so bad. What I get? 2 out of 5?
Okay, 2 out of 5, not
I say
terrible.
that's a pass, honestly.
That's
Thank
a
you.
pass,
Thank you
that's
very
a pass.
much.
Congratulations.
Okay, let me tell you about a different game. Okay, let's move to the next thing here.
Mhm.
We've raced past Sonic, and I'm gonna tell you about
Ooh.
Lake
So
because
long, suckers, to Sonic, I say.
yeah, right. Lake's in first place now. So Lake, this is the game we saw a couple of years ago come out, and it's the one where you are a mail person, mail delivery. You're going around that small town. It takes place in the 70s, so it's got a really nice kind of retro vibe, retro art style. You know, all those kinds of. It's like pre
Mhm.
cell phone, pre internet, all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Like, and
So
a very small town kind of feel
very
to it,
small
right?
town. And so the way I would describe it is actually kind of similar to something like Stardew Valley in its premise, where you're like leaving the big city, and the game has a lot of themes of like slowing down and like other things come before work or like burning yourself out working at your job. So she's coming from in Stardew Valley, you're coming like you're like a software developer, you're coming to farm. In this game, you're a girl. Her name's Meredith, and she moves from the big city. She works at like a burgeoning tech company or something, and she comes to take over her dad's mail delivery job for a couple of weeks where her parents go on vacation. And so the whole
Mhm.
thing of the game, like all you're doing is you are going to the post office every morning, you pick up your mail truck, you have your delivery list, and you're just driving. The city's like kind of a big, there's a residential area on one side, but the whole thing encircles a big, beautiful, it's a really beautiful scenery. Like there's a lake in the middle, and that's why it's called Lake. And so
Mhm.
you're just sort of delivering the mail every day for 2 weeks, getting to know the townspeople, sort of helping them with their concerns. Like there's one lady whose cat gets sick because she's a crazy cat lady, and you've got to take her cat in your mail truck and deliver it to another guy because he knows about animals. Just these
Mhm.
types of little interactions, I guess, that you get. And some are stronger than others. Like there's a couple people you get to know pretty well. One girl who runs a video store, which is really cool to go in and see like an old school kind of video rental
Mhm.
place. Um, and then there's another guy who's sort of a lumberjack, and you see him quite a bit. My personal favorite is there's a guy who runs a farm, but out of the farm, he also has a radio broadcast station. So I see him being kind of like us, where we have other stuff we do, and then we do a podcast.
Yeah,
So he's a
that's cool.
farmer, but he's a radio guy, and so every morning, actually, when you get in your news truck, he has sort of like a radio show that comes on, and he updates
Mhm.
you about. He has like a show about like gossip around the town or something. So someone will come on and make a statement, and then he'll be like, okay, and the weather will be rainy this morning and then sunny in the afternoon, and then he'll put the music on, and the rest of your drive for the day you'll have music. And so you kind of get into this routine of like, okay, what are my deliveries this morning? Am I going to do the residential place first, or do I feel like driving out sort of into the forest and going to visit remote houses? Like it's just a really super chill game where you get to sort of have these interactions with people. A little bit, hit and miss here and there, but as far as like the depth of what you do with
Mhm.
them. But I just loved the little bit of time I got to sink into this game. It was almost like taking a real break. Like she's taking a break from her stressful job, and I was taking a break from playing other stressful games to play Lake.
Yeah, this game looks really neat to me. I remember when it was unveiled and just something about it, I don't know, maybe it was the art style, maybe it's just there's that like beauty in doing those mundane things in a way, right? Like to me this game looks very peaceful and
Yeah.
even with the story of like how the character gets into involved in being in this small community, but it's just that idea of like just kind of taking a breather and a step back from everything and like it's weird because in real life, I'd never wanna be a male person and to
Right.
drive, like, a
Right.
male
Yeah.
car, right? And it seems just like such a boring job, and it's, like, not anything I would ever pursue, but there's something about playing it in a game that's just so wholesome and so, like, peaceful in the like, how mundane it is, and I love that there's so many games like this, like, Unpacking is another one that I really wanna
Hmm.
play, and,
Hmm.
like, just so many little experiences that are There's something about video games can capture that no other medium really does.
I think it's because the amount of time you spend, right? Like I spent 2 weeks. I mean, each day isn't that long, but I was delivering
Mhm.
mail for 4 or 5 hours. And like, largely, that's all I did, and it was great. You're 100% right. It's not a perfect game. I think that obviously it's one of those. It's like a fairly smaller budget indie, right? Like you're gonna see
Mhm.
not the greatest graphics sometimes on a lot of the textures, and like the way your character moves is very slow. Like one thing I wish that you could have is the walking speed could be increased, because sometimes you have to drive up. There's this one guy in particular that has a super long driveway, and you can only
Mhm.
go so far because the way his house is set up. And so you have to park your car, go around the back, open the back, get his box out, then carry the box all the way kind of up this driveway, and and then you got to walk all the way back down. And I'm just like, oh, give me like a jog, like something.
Mhm.
Just little qualities of life where it's like, I guess, I'm sure they talked about adding a jog, but was that something that was cut or something like that? That being said, they
Mhm.
do have a lot of really nice stuff in there as well. Like there's actually 4 sort of fast travel points around the lake if you have one really out of the way delivery and you don't want to drive all the way because you've made that drive a few times. You can sort of teleport yourself there. And there's also an auto driving thing too, where you can just set your destination and the truck will just go and you can just enjoy the game. It's actually pretty cool. I did that one time too. I was like, oh, I'm gonna just, I gotta check my phone for a second. So I just put
Yeah.
it on auto drive. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah, they had that feature in, Red Dead Redemption 2 as well.
hmm
You could
hmm
just, like, it was called cinematic mode, and it would, like, zoom the camera out and give you these, like, really nice angles and just
Yeah.
watch your horse, like, drive al or ride
Yeah.
along the plains.
It's awesome. So
Yeah.
the only last thing I have to say about the game is, which is kind of cool, is that it does have an element of sort of choose your own adventure in a way. Not with most of what goes on in the game, but as you sort of get to know everyone during the day, there's always a cutscene at night after you finish your work where you can either sometimes someone will
Mhm.
call you on the phone and be like, "Do you want to come and do this activity with me?" Sometimes you'll just watch TV. Sometimes your parents will call you or your boss will call you, and he's always about to say like, "Oh, we're about to get our next big breakthrough. We're gonna make
Yeah, you
millions, and
coming back?
are you
Yeah.
coming back?" And so you're talking to your parents, you're talking to your boss, and then eventually you sort of get these 3 options at the end, and you can either return back to your previous job, have this big cash windfall coming towards you because apparently something really good just happened. You can do that. You can sort of stay at the lake a little longer, vaguely, or you can decide to kind of go off and have your own adventure and do neither of those things. And so there's a few NPCs attached with each of those options too, and it gives you a bit to think about because you do get to know some of these people, and it was really wholesome. I think is what you said earlier, and that's definitely what I took away from. I think if you can get past a bit of a slow pace thing and just take it for what it is, like a nice little break, this is a really awesome game. I would recommend for people
Mhm.
for sure. Great.
Game Pass?
Game Pass.
Game
Yeah.
Pass.
But
Yep,
even
I had
even
a
without Game
feeling.
Pass, I think it's like $15 or something, and I
Yeah,
personally think like I
it's
think it
worth
was
the
worth it for
purchase.
$15 for sure. If that's what you can find it for, something in that area,
Mhm.
personally. We have one other game to talk about, Kate, and this was a fun one. So I recently went back and I played a game that you and I had both played quite a bit when we were younger, which is
What?
Starfox 64, because I finally got that Switch
Mhm.
Online subscription. And before I tell you anything about my experience, I just want to know, like, how do you remember this game? Like, do you think it would be good today?
Um I think well, that's a tough question to answer. I
Sure.
remember Star Fox 64 very fondly. The first few things that come to mind, so I remember really liking the levels that because there's 2 types of levels I think I remember. There's, like, the boss fight ones where you're kind of, like, in somewhat restricted
Yeah.
space, and half of the gameplay of that is, like, driving to the invisible barrier and, like, doing a cool flip to turn around. I very distinctly remember that maneuver. And then the other ones are the ones where you're kind of, like, flying, like, through the level, like, not really on rails, but, like, in that
Yeah. I mean, it's
kind of
on
vein.
rails, but you got some sort of
Yeah, and you've
movement
got, like
options. Yeah.
you kind of have options, you sort of take the right path
Yeah.
or the left path, and you're flying through those hoops. I remember that. I remember that Slippy's always dying at all times, no matter what, um, no matter how good you are. Falco is, like, such an edgelord,
Oh, he is.
but,
I can confirm that.
yeah, but every now and again, he might start dying too, and then all of a sudden, "Fox, help me," so, I remember that. I mean, this is the quintessential do a barrel roll, that's where this comes from,
Yeah,
right?
it is. I did my barrel roll
Um,
too, let me tell you. I did a lot
Good.
of barrel rolls.
You
Very
gotta do at least
useful.
one.
Very useful.
Um, I remember it being fun, like, I remember really liking this game and, like, the whole, like, space, like, ship combat is not my thing,
Mhm.
but I loved this game. Oh, they have metal legs? I remember that too, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Possibly
I didn't
metal
know that
legs?
until much later, though.
Yeah, I didn't know that until much later. But yeah, like, I think this game would still be fun. Like, I bet it looks horrible, but I guarantee it's still really fun. Like, I can picture, like, you can think of, like, the green, like, square reticle you had, and it
Yeah,
would kind
yeah,
of, like, turn with your ship as
yeah.
you went,
Exactly,
and
yeah.
you had, like, your main fire, and then you had, like, a boost, like a rocket shot, I
You had the
think, that you could
bombs,
also
yeah,
fire, the bombs.
bombs. Yeah, so, you know
Oh,
what? The
yeah.
way you're describing it is exactly how I felt about it before I played, and it's exactly
Mhm.
how I feel about it now. It's the same game, and I think it
Yeah?
holds up incredibly well.
Oh
The
gosh.
graphics look like garbage. Hmm?
I remember this guy too, the big monkey, and
Oh,
you shoot
Andros,
his
the final
hand.
boss, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Final
you try
boss.
his hands, right?
Yeah, exactly, and then he
Yeah.
starts sucking you in like, he
Yeah,
blows all those meteors at you, and then you sucks them back
that's
in his mouth.
right,
Yeah.
and then all the times you've been going out of bounds and doing your cool flip, you actually have to do it in that boss fight, right, to get away from him?
I
That
so
true?
funny story, I actually figured out another way, I just, like, hit the brake and sort of went to the side of his mouth, and he wasn't able to get me.
Oh, I don't think we ever once
I
did
don't think
that.
so either. I don't think
We
so
used
either.
to, yeah, like, zoom the other way and, like, do the flip thing.
Yeah, I guess part of the reason is because the controls are different on the Switch, right? Like, the C stick isn't the same,
Oh,
so you have to kinda do this weird combination of holding R and, like, pushing some other buttons. I just basically didn't use a lot of those. But yeah, what you're saying, the game holds up super well. Besides the graphics, obviously N64 doesn't look so good,
mhm,
but it's still super fun. The controls are actually like really responsive, and like the game itself, it's such a short game, right? Like it's almost like an arcade style thing where you do like 8 levels in a row and then you get a high score at
mhm.
the end. And so I just did like one run through of the end. You know, you get to see which path you get depending if you get the secret exits. Um, you know,
Right, because there was some variation in, like, routes you could
there
take through the
was.
game, right? It was often like, choose one of these 2 planets, and
Mhm.
then that would, like, give you a new way through the path, and,
Yeah,
like
exactly, and then some of the levels had the Landmaster tank, which I made sure to get one Landmaster level in there, so I drove that
right,
thing
right.
around, and I forgot you could, like, make it boost from side to side, and if you pushed both boosts on the tank, you would hover in place a little bit off the ground.
Mhm.
Just really cool stuff like that. It was, like, tons of little blasts from the past of, like, "Oh, I remember this level," and then the way Rob or whoever in the ship would say, like, "Good luck," before the game,
Yeah, that's
but I could
right,
never
that's
understand what they said when I was a kid.
mhm.
Yeah, I had just a great time going back to visit, and I will tell you, it was a lot. Well, at first I thought the game was a lot easier than I remembered it. Like you mentioned Slippy dying all the time, or like I didn't have
All
a
the
single
time.
character die until I was nearly at the very end. Like I was able to defend them pretty well. They always call out, a fox, help
Mhm.
me, like whatever, and then you'll kill the guy
Yeah.
chasing them, and they're fine. But I'll tell you, the last couple levels of this game are hard as nails, or at least the ones I chose. Like it spikes so hard in a way that I wasn't expecting. One level in particular where it's one of those sort of arena matches, and then
Mhm.
Starwolf shows up, so you're like fighting off a bunch of ships. Starwolf shows up with his crew, and then you're also trying to take out this like ship core or whatever. It just gets really overwhelming, and especially at that time, I
Mhm.
was down. I think one of my people had died, and I was just like, "Oh my god!" Like I'm actually getting like overrun in Starfox. I wasn't expecting this. But it was just I had a great time going back. I love that it was super short. And now I'm on to Paper Mario, which I'll tell you about next time because I will say something. That game is oh my god, I'm sucked in with
Yeah.
Paper Mario.
That
What an
game
experience.
that game is like a absolute nostalgia trip.
100%.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you're looking for nostalgia and if you're, hesitant about the N64 stuff, if you played Star Fox 64 as a kid, I 100% recommend going back and just experiencing that again. One thing I didn't expect, and I will end on this. So you're talking about voice lines with Sonic and some of the
Yeah.
things the characters say. In this game, Slippy literally has a line where, and it's very PG, right? The whole time, it's even
Mhm.
Falco's like not. There's no swearing or really anything close to it,
Yeah.
except for this one line that Slippy has where she calls, or Slippy a boy or a girl? I don't even know.
I think Slippy's a girl? I don't
Okay, well,
know.
Slippy calls for someone's carcass.
What?
Slippy's like, "I'll have your carcass," or something. Like, I was so caught off guard. Like, what kind of line is that? Um,
That's so funny.
Crazy.
I feel like maybe that's a translation thing and, like or
Yeah.
maybe I feel like carcass could almost be the, like like, censored version of the line because it's like, oh, it's a very, like, like,
Yeah.
anatomy term,
Yeah,
right?
it's not like it's anywhere like a bad word or anything, but it was just really jarring to hear one of them say that in
Mhm.
a game where they've said nothing remotely offensive or like,
Yeah.
you know,
That
prickly at
is
all.
so
So,
funny. And
yeah.
Slippy is a boy, by the
Okay,
way,
that's
which
what I
makes me
thought.
wonder if Peppy Hare's also
No,
he's
Peppy's
got
I think they're all boys because this was
they're
the
all boys.
90s and no one cared about
Right,
including women
okay.
yet.
Yeah, I think as a kid, I always thought Slippy was a girl, and I maybe it
That's
was
what I
because
thought too.
she's a little bit of, like, a higher voice, maybe?
I think Slippy's younger is
Yeah,
who knows.
anyway,
Rookie.
he's the inventor and the mechanic of the team, and he's a
Oh,
toad.
that's great.
Mhm. Good
Let's
for him. He's
let's talk
19, so
he's
yeah.
19. Okay, that's right. That's what I thought.
Or 18, it's hard to tell. He must have a birthday partway through Star Fox 64.
Right when they get to Corneria, he has 18th
Yeah,
birthday.
that's right, he's celebrating.
Okay, well that's what we've been playing for this week. Check again for next time for I guess Paper Mario. I've committed to that now, so we'll get to that one in the future. Right now, Kate, let's pivot. It's news time because we have to talk about the brand new PlayStation Plus subscription revamping. And I'd like to start us off with just some math, actually, because I've gone through and
No, math.
not math. I promise it's not too
Not
bad, folks.
math. Okay.
But well, actually, maybe we shouldn't start with the math. Essentially, PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now, as known, this is the PlayStation Spartacus thing, right? They're now
Mhm.
being put together into one service, as is the rumor that we've been hearing for a while. And so, according to this website that I'm on, Mobile Syrup, especially because it's Canadian, getting to the pricing of this, just going to run over quickly what the new structure is for everyone, so we're all playing on with the same rules. Okay, so when this starts, I believe it's starting later this summer. PlayStation Plus Essential is the first level of this new tier system, which is exactly the same as current PlayStation Plus. So nothing will
Mhm.
change for people in that situation, aside from maybe some price stuff, as we'll get to later. The next middle tier of the three tiers is PlayStation Plus Extra, where you get all the normal perks plus, quote, up to 400 PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 downloadable games from first and third party studios. And then, so that's the part basically rolling in a lot of PlayStation Now functionality and PS Plus, the same
Mhm.
subscription. And then PlayStation Premium, you get all of that plus up to 340, which is weird. What if they get to 340 games and then did they take one off? If they get 341, like that's kind of weird. But anyway, up to 340 games, including PS3 games, which you can only stream, not download. And then a catalog of quote beloved catalog, or a catalog of beloved classic games from PS1, 2, and PSP, which can be streamed and downloaded, as well as limited time game trials, which is interesting because they don't really say what kind of games for. But anyway, that's a lot of information. Basically,
Mhm.
there is the regular PS Plus, then there's going to be sort of a PS4 and PS5 PS Now tier, and then that's the way I'm looking at it. And then the
Yeah,
final tier is like PS Now for
includes retro
the
stuff.
retro stuff as
Yeah,
well as game trials.
yeah.
So it's a lot to take in, like I said, but all in all, I mean, how do you feel about these different tiers? Do you feel like they laid it out sort of correctly?
Yeah, I think these are, like, the 3 tiers that I think make the most sense. I adore the essential tier because whenever stuff like this happens or something gets revamped, there's always that fear that, like, it's just gonna inherently suck more
Hmm.
for people who are, like, been a part of, like, the original system. So, like, I am super I wanna say thankful, but honestly, it would've just been, like, I think they fucked up if it wasn't the case. Like, I think they
Right.
kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
had to do this, and so I'm glad that they did do the essential. I think the extra and the premium, like, make sense as tiers because, like, the extra just seems like what most people would want if they want a subscription style service, and then I think that the premium is, like, really cool for people who want the retro, but I feel like because the retro is a little more niche, I like that it's
Hmm.
separate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I think the as far as like what you get at each tier, the one thing that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and it's very nitpicky, so it's not really a big deal, is that the trials are only for the highest tier subscriber.
Yeah.
Because two things. Number one, like just make trials for everyone. The more people that try your game, you're gonna get more feedback, and you're also gonna get more people who are gonna play it, like it, and buy it. So it doesn't really make sense. And especially for me, like for the premium tier, like the only people who are going to buy that premium tier are going to be the most hardcore fans, right? You would think.
Mhm.
So those people are probably already going to buy the games that you're giving them trials for. So why not just add that into a cheaper
Yeah,
side of it?
it's also just kind of yeah, it's kind of just a strange thing. And then also, like, what are the trials for? Because if the
Mhm.
games are just, like, included that you can stream, why do you have a trial? So are the trials for games that are not
Well, I thought they
in
would be for games that aren't
PS
out yet.
Plus? Oh, for games I guess so, but it just seems kinda weird, like, why do you need a trial when you can just
Right.
stream the game as part of your subscription anyway,
See, this is confusing.
right?
Even right now, you and I are confused about what the trials are for.
Yeah,
Very strange. So let's talk about the price of all of this before we
right.
break it all down, because that is where it gets a little bit interesting. There is a note on here that says at launch, so anyone who has the base subscription will, or a PlayStation Now subscription, will just get the base tier of this at no additional fee. At no additional fee, and they say at launch. So in the future,
Mhm.
they're leaving wiggle room to maybe make the whole thing more expensive, or hopefully make it cheaper. Who knows? But let's talk about the price of it, okay? Because I did some math, like I said.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm judging by now. These are again, I'm on Mobile Syrup for a certain reason because they've done their best to estimate the Canadian prices. Um, they didn't actually announce an official Canadian price point, but they're just extrapolating based on the US. It should be around these kind of things we're going to talk about. So currently for PlayStation Plus, 1 month is $11.99, $12, and PlayStation
Mhm.
Now currently for 1 month is $12.99. So it's a buck more for some reason. Why make it different? Who knows? But that's the way it is. So essentially, right now, if you're subscribing to PS Plus and PS Now for 1 month, you're paying about $25 Canadian.
Right, but that's only and that's keep in mind, that's only if you're paying on a
It's
monthly,
only monthly, right?
because when you buy the year, it gets significantly cheaper.
Right, and that's a trend that continues onto their new pricing plans as well.
Yeah.
Because as I'm looking at this right now, what they have, the essential's the same price. So the essential, you're basically paying, you're getting just PS Plus for $12 again. But then when you go up to the extra, it's going to be about $20 a month, or 1975, 1875 is what they have for PS Plus
1875.
Extra. So technically, that's going to be the combination of what PS Plus currently is plus PS Now. So if you take that in combination right now, that's $25. And if you're that looking for that kind of thing, the extra tier would actually probably save a lot of those people a few
Yeah,
dollars a month.
it actually saves you,
It's
I think,
actually a
'cause
bit cheaper.
if it's 12 and, like, 13, right? Like
Yeah, right. Right. So it's going to be about $6 or $7 cheaper if you're
yeah,
paying monthly for the middle one. The last tier is about 22.50 a month. They're saying for us for the premium. So, and obviously they all get a lot cheaper. Like premium for an annual is 150. Then the middle one is 125, and then PS Plus, I think, what is it, 60 or $70 for the year for us right now?
yeah, so it's
70,
like
I think. Yeah,
it's
69.99 right
70,
here.
yeah, so for
Hmm.
us to get, it's about so if you're buying the yearly, the extra, which is gonna be, like, the upgrade, is, like, just about $10 a month,
Hmm.
and the what we're currently paying right now for PS Plus and what would be the essential tier is, like, so it's 70 we said,
We're doing
right?
math on the fly here
Yeah,
now
it's about, like, just under $6. So it's only, like, $4 more per month
for the
to
premium.
upgrade to the extra from
Right,
essential.
right, right, right. Yeah. So it's actually a pretty good deal. Like I personally, I don't
So,
know where
yeah,
you're standing on this. I feel like I will right now probably get the extra as like my main tier. Like, and this is a big caveat like we haven't talked about yet, is that they just haven't told us what a lot of the games coming to this are.
yeah.
They said in their blog post that they mentioned a few games here they listed here: Death Stranding, God of War, Marvel Spider-Man, Spider-Man Miles Morales, Mortal Kombat 11, and Returnal, which is, yeah, that's awesome. I would love to play those games on this service, but
Buy it for Eternal. It's
you
worth
know,
it. Buy it for Eternal.
well, fair. I mean, if I get this Returnal through this service, like I purposely haven't bought Returnal now, even though I was going to, because I want to try it through this now, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, it just depends. Are we going to have a lot more games like that coming in the future? Is this just kind of going to be like the PlayStation Picks thing we got on PS5, where they gave us that big list of great games, but they haven't added to it at all, which is fine because it was a bonus. But this is the kind of
Mhm.
service, if you're paying a subscription annually or monthly, that you do want them to add to this. You know, this has got to be sort of a living, breathing service, and what is that going to look like long term? Like, are first party games going to come to this? I know they're not going to come day and date like on Xbox, but like
Right.
a year later, when God of War finally comes to PC, like it's on Steam now, is that when it might come to this service? Like a couple of years later, that's the stuff we don't know.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's what I think it comes down to, right? Like, you can talk all you want about tiers and how much it's gonna cost, but at the end of the day, like, that information's irrelevant until you know what the actual product is. So I think I'm personally in the camp of being, like, relatively optimistic. If it's 4
Hmm.
extra dollars a month for me to upgrade to the extra and get quote unquote 400 games worth of stuff, then, like, I mean, like, I'm not like, that's such an easy choice, right? Like,
Hmm.
I'm most likely gonna do it. The only way I see not doing it is if the selection's not very good and
Yeah.
I end up getting Game Pass instead, because I don't think I would buy this and Game Pass. Like, I think one subscription is enough for me.
Right. Yeah.
I'd like it to be this one because, I'm already paying for PS Plus Essential, so, like, it's just easier to put it all together into
Right.
one subscription. But at the same time, like, if Game Pass is such a good value and I can play it on my PC and, like, as
Right.
I always say, if you can be a privileged person and have a nice PC and a PlayStation as your console, that's the way to do it because you've access to everything,
Right. Exactly.
then
It's gonna come
but
down to the library, yeah, like,
yeah.
that's the thing with this one, though, especially, like, it's the kind of thing where even if you didn't stick with the extra, like, why not start with it and at least play Miles Morales and Spider-Man and Returnal
Yeah.
and God of War and all these games, and if they don't add to it, then just change down to the essential one, right? Or
Yeah, I think that's another good thing too is how easy is it for it to change? Like, can I buy a year of extra and then 6 months in decide I'm not really using it, I wanna go down to essential and, like,
I wonder, that's a good
get some
question.
money back for it, so I think if it's, like, really flexible in that way, that would be awesome, and, like, the other thing I'm wondering too is, like, I don't think I've ever once paid full price for a year of PS Plus
Right, yeah,
because
yeah,
it
it's
goes on
always on
sale
sale.
constantly, and so I wonder, like, will it still be on sale all the time, and, like, can I get extra at the, like, 20% off at all times like
Right.
I used to get
That's a good
Essential?
question, actually. Yeah, yeah. I
So
mean, I'm sure they'll still have sales. Like, I mean, Xbox, not to. I mean, it's obviously not the same thing, but they have Game Pass for $1 sometimes for 3 months. Like, you obviously, I don't think Sony would do that, but I could see it being like, it's Boxing Day sale, 15% off, or they do
yeah.
that kind of thing. The other thing too that we haven't talked about yet is PS3 games are still streaming only, which is just crazy. Like, I know there's a lot of talk about, oh, it's the different processor they used and those games are built differently, but it's like, man, it's 2022. Like, people have PS3 emulators on their computers. Like, you're the company that made this console. Why can we not download and play these games on our PS5? Like, we're not even asking to put the disc in it. Like, just let us download. I don't understand why you can't download a digital game and play
And
it
maybe
like
this
that.
this might be a naive question, I'm obviously not a hardware expert, but
Right.
is PlayStation 3 harder to, like, PS1, PS2, and PSP can be downloaded. Is that
Yeah.
is PS3, like, a lot harder to
No, it
do
is.
than
Well, that's the thing. The
PS?
reason why
Is
it's
that
always had
true?
a problem with PS3 is because the system itself had a different like type of
Oh,
processor in it than has been used in other game consoles. And that's
okay,
why originally like there was a lot of it was very expensive when it first came out and like
right.
there was that whole thing going on. And then also a lot of the games have been hard to go back and sort of retroactively make playable. Like that's why there's been no
Okay.
PS4 wasn't backwards compatible with PS3 because they had like a totally different um like processor or something. I'm obviously really dumbing this down because I don't understand it much either, but I know like PS4, PS5 are built on very similar hardware, so
Right.
they're kind of very compatible. And then when you go back to PS2, PS1, it's almost like those things were so basic that they're just sort of they're very retro. And PS3 sort of falls in that middle ground of like it's still modern enough, but it uses this way different
Right.
technology. And so yeah, but at the
Okay.
same time, it's
I
like people are
understand that.
emulating this on computers still. Like, there's got to be some type of PS3 emulator they could get us to install on our PS5 and
Right.
like, have this work.
They're pulling a Nintendo right now where
Yeah,
the
it's just
emulators
brutal.
are just not working.
It's just brutal. Yeah,
Interesting. Do you think the premium is something that you would ever be interested in? And, like
it depends. Like, to me,
Mhm.
I'm not super drawn to playing a lot of the old stuff. Like, occasionally I'll want to go back and play. Like, oh, it'd be cool to, we went back and on PS1 and we played Crash Bash, but
Yeah.
maybe
Mhm.
once a year or twice a year I go back and really want to play something older. Um, and again, it turns out it would depend what that catalog is. Like if they have one thing I really want to do is I want to go back and play through some of the Metal Gear games, for example. Like
Right.
I've said that on the show. It's like that's the classic PlayStation franchise that I've not played much of, so I'd like to go back and try them out. And there's not really a great way to do that. If they were on this service, like I could see myself using something like this to download those games and play them, but I don't know. I don't see myself getting enough value out of sort of
Right,
retro
and
stuff.
that's where the flexibility comes in, like, can you just bump up for a month
Right,
and, like,
yeah, that's the thing.
play the games you wanted for a month and then go back
That's the
down, and I
thing.
think, like, that to me is where, like, the value really comes in because, like, I am the kind of person where I typically tend to play less games, but for longer periods of time.
Right.
But, like, occasionally I would like to hop in, like, there's a lot of games like Lake you just talked about and, like, Unpacking and, like, there's a lot of games I've been wanting to get Xbox, Game Pass for just to play easily.
Mhm.
Um, and so, like, I would love to be able to bump up for a month and play a couple of those, like, smaller indie titles, or even just if there's one big game that, is on there, like Guardians of the Galaxy, for example, would be one of them I really wanna play. And if I could go back down when I'm not using it, that would be so incredibly nice because it's like, well, I'm in the Elden Ring, like, slog, like, for the next however long, like, I'm 82 hours in. I think maybe I'm about
You only
halfway
got
with
like
the pet.
755 more to go.
Exactly, and so, like, I don't wanna be paying for the subscription while a game like Elden Ring's out, and, like, when a game like that comes out that I really prioritize, I don't need all this I don't need
Yeah.
400 games
Yeah.
because I wanna play one game for 80 hours, but then, like, next month when I'm done, "Can I come back, please? Like, will you accept me back into
Exactly.
your life extra?" And
I mean,
so
to me, it would make sense letting people do that, right? Because the whole idea
yeah,
is they want you to use the service and to like it enough to move your subscription up and up and up. So
yeah.
by letting someone like you who's like, oh, I'd like
Well,
to, be on one of the lower tiers, maybe bump it up. It's like they want
yeah,
you to do. I would assume they would want you to do that, and eventually you'd be like, oh, this is so great. Maybe I'll just keep my subscription. I do this all the
well
time.
and I agree with you, and I think that's the user-friendly method, and so I hope that's the case, but subscriptions make the most money out of people who pay for them and don't use them. Like, think
Right.
of how much money gyms make because people sign up and then they have this, like, gym membership, and then they just stop
Yeah.
going. They're like they don't cancel because, like, what if they might wanna go back? And so, like, yeah, bumping up, probably no problem, that's hella flexible, but to bump
To bump
down,
down is the problem.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, how many people are gonna just pay for the higher tier because they've got it and, like, maybe they'll use it later?
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
that's the whole to me that's the whole reason like what you said is the whole reason they've even redone the system in the first place is because
yeah.
not enough people are using PlayStation Now. So they're like, well, if we just, add a couple of these perks like merge them together, then the people that only use PlayStation Now will come over and, put people in the same place and actually use those subscriptions because I don't think they were getting the
Mhm.
numbers from people now at all that they would have wanted. Like people just didn't talk about it. Whereas
Yeah.
PlayStation Plus is a very popular and like almost everyone that has a PlayStation uses Plus, if not for the
Yeah.
games, then to play online.
Mhm. Absolutely. So, we'll see. I mean, I think
Yeah,
this is a good framework. I'm happy with this framework, but obviously there's a lot more to be seen.
I think that's a great summary. Framework is good. Pricing actually seems like reasonable
Yeah,
depending what you
pricing
get. I
seems
think it
pretty
just comes
reasonable.
down to what are the games, and that's what we'll find out together, folks, on this lovely podcast in the coming week. But
Mhm.
for now, let's talk about PlayStation Plus in a different way because we got the April games announced the other day. And so our lovely subscribers for PlayStation Plus can get Hood, Outlaw, and Legends, SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, and our beloved Slay the Spire. Kate, I'm so excited.
No, no, I don't
Everyone,
need it in more places in my
everyone
life.
play Slay the Spire right now.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, interesting week. I mean, Slay the Spire aside, I should say month, not week. Um, People really loved SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom for I think it's one of those nostalgia picks, right? Like we always
Yep.
talk about Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. This is a remake of a game sort of from that era, like a mascot platformer, and apparently pretty good. So I don't think I'm gonna play it. I'm not a big SpongeBob person. I'm probably gonna play more Slay the Spire myself. I don't know where you're at with that. What does Hood do for you? Do you have any interest? That's like that PVE sort of heist game we saw a year or two ago on it was coming out. I don't think it really did too well.
Yeah, I feel like this game like, first of all, Hood is just kind of like it's got a very generic fantasy name, and also, like, I never see anyone talk about it, so I
Hmm.
I wasn't even sure what it was at first. I mean, it kinda looks cool. This is the kinda game, like, if I can get some people to play with, I'd like to give it a shot. Going in solo seems less than ideal.
Yeah, I think it's like a game where you need to have a team, you know, like it's a PvP sort of thing, like your squad versus another squad who can go in and rob stuff from a castle first where there's AI guards sort of guarding it, sort of like Robin
Yeah.
Hood, right?
Yeah, it's PvPvE,
Mhm.
to not get too complicated. But, like, it seems kinda cool, like, it does seem like it's got some potential. I just don't know how much it replaces, like, other social games
That's
I'm
the problem,
playing,
yeah.
and then yeah, Slay the Spire, I'm my
It's a
addiction is so
dangerous,
big.
dangerous game. I used to
You
feel
know
that
what?
way. That was my MapleStory thing for the longest
Yeah.
time. That's been replaced now by Slay the Spire.
Yeah, I'm through that era of my life. I think the other thing too is, like, I just have everything on like, the only thing I could see going back to this is, like, the most fun about Slay the Spire to me was, like, unlocking everything and, like,
Yeah,
seeing all the new cards, and, like, I know what they all are, like, I know what I'm getting, there's nothing new to see, like, if I'm gonna play more Slay the Spire, it's modded on PC where, like, I can be Hollow Knight and, like, cool stuff like that.
yeah.
This isn't gonna get me SpongeBob, yeah, I don't know, we miss SpongeBob as kids,
We did.
and
I know
I
that's
respect
blasphemous,
that other
everyone. I know
people
that's blasphemous, but
I
we
respect
did.
that other people love it, but I've just it's too late for me, you know, like,
I was talking
you
to
can't
someone
go
about
back.
I was talking to someone about this, and I was saying, like, for those that didn't grow up with him, he's extremely grating. Like, he's funny if you have the nostalgia factor for him, but if you're just coming into him for the first time, it's like, "Oh my god, get
He's
away."
just a little bit loud, like,
Mhm.
it's a lot to take in, and, like, I've been told
We're
that
pretty
the show's,
quiet,
like
so
I've been told the show's, like, you know, it's well written, it's got
sure.
some clever humor,
And
and
I'm sure it
I don't
is, like, I'm
doubt
sure it
that it
is.
does. I don't doubt that it does, but it's like, imagine pitching The Office to someone, and the only character you have to show them is season 1 Michael. That's a hard sell,
That's a hard sell.
right? Like, you don't get to show them, like, where he grows as a character or any of the supporting cast. It's just, like, hang out with season 1 Michael, and that's tough.
Thank you for that analogy. I'm gonna use that all the time now. Thank you
It's
so
so
much.
true.
All right, let's get to our last news story, which is a quick, short one, but it's something worth mentioning, which is that PlayStation has a new studio coming to the family. This is pretty old news, actually, but we just haven't had a news show due to the schedule being screwed up. So I just wanted to bring attention to it that PlayStation has brought Haven Studio on as a first-party studio. So for those that don't know, this is the one that was started by Jade Raymond a couple years ago. She is of the success from Naughty Dog and other games. I think she was with Assassin's Creed for quite a while at the start of that series as well. But they're
Mhm.
working on a blockbuster AAA game, which sounds very exciting and ambitious. I believe Jade was actually previously working with Google Stadia, which she was hired to run one of their first party studios. But then that whole thing tanked and basically fell off the cliff before it even started. So I guess the PlayStation was working alongside publishing whatever game they're working on and liked what it looked like, and so they just decided, hey, you
Mhm.
know what? Why don't we work together permanently? And this is the result. So it seems like it will mean a better game will be made by Haven at very least, because we'll sort of have that PlayStation backing. But any thoughts?
I mean, it's not something that I'm extremely familiar with.
Hmm.
It's just another one in the machine as
Yes,
far as
that's
that's
right.
concerned.
That's right.
But you know what? I like their studio name.
Yeah.
Jade Raymond, I know, is, like, a really beloved person in the industry, so yeah, see what
The
they
one
come up
part
with.
that's interesting tidbit, and I will mention, is it's a
Mhm.
AAA multiplayer game they're talking about, right? Very
Okay.
interesting in the wake of Sony buying Bungie, who has a very
Oh, right.
extensive knowledge on AAA multiplayer, and so I wonder how much assistance they might get working together with something along those lines.
We'll see. It's interesting because I think Bungie's still pretty separate. Like, I think
Yeah.
Bungie's acquisition was very much like Bungie's gonna do Bungie things, and Sony's
Well,
gonna give
sure.
them money, right?
Sure,
So
but at the same time, it's like they obviously have a really, really strong grasp of like how to run. What are the ways that we monetize a game as a
right.
service AAA multiplayer type of thing?
Right,
How do we
yeah,
make people
they
want to
might
come back?
yeah, they might
You
sit next
know,
to each other at the cafeteria every now and again
exactly.
and share some
You know,
tips.
share those tips on a sticky note, passing
Yeah,
notes back and forth. Like that's the kind of thing
yeah.
that makes it like to me. I'm more excited for a AAA multiplayer coming from a studio like this that has sort of that support rather than
Mhm.
some studio started by itself that it doesn't really have anyone with them
Yeah.
looking for the same thing.
And I will say as a little tidbit, she worked on a lot of Assassin's Creed stuff.
Yep.
Assassin's Creed, I think 2, I
Mhm.
wanna say, had that, like, multiplayer online mode, and it was
Oh, right.
genuinely, like, one of the best parts of Assassin's Creed. It was so fun. It was basically like you all got into, like, Venice or, like, wherever it was set, and you all picked, like you had, like, 10 different characters you could be of various different, like, disguises or, like, character models within the game, and you just had to, like you all got a mark and had to assassinate each other, but you had to, like, pick them out from the crowd of NPCs that also looked like them,
Right.
and, like, the only way to do that, the only actual, like, mechanic in the game was just, like, to see if they looked like they weren't NPCs and were, like, doing, like running around like humans, so you'd spend the majority of the match just, like, trying to blend in with crowds and not look like a
Like, spinning your
player-controlled
camera
character.
around looking for people that were doing weird stuff.
Exactly, and it was, like, fascinating. So, like, you'd be trying to find your mark, and, like, if you saw them, you might wanna, like, break into a run to get them, but, like, you don't know if
Yeah, it's a
someone's
bad
been
idea,
tailing
though.
you for the last 5
Damn.
minutes as
So,
well, and so
not to get
it was
too
so
far into this,
cool.
but was there, like, a time limit on this? Or because I could see that just going for
I
hours.
think there was. I think it was, like, whoever could get the most assassinations in, like, a certain amount of time.
Okay.
But, yeah, it was actually super cool.
That sounds like fun. I
Um,
think I heard
yeah,
about that, but I never played it, so what a miss.
yeah,
What a
it's
miss
fun.
for me.
Mm.
Um, we're coming towards the end of the show here, Kate, but we do have to finish off with our annual tradition, or not annual, showly tradition, every show. Listener
Holy
mail.
tradition.
We have a great question here today, Kate. Do you have it open? We can read it out
I
for our listeners at
do.
home.
I do indeed. So this comes from, a fan favorite of our show, and that actually sounds like I'm saying he loves our show, which I hope is true, but I meant that in the reverse, like
Right.
we love you back. So,
You're welcome. We didn't
Jonah
spoil the game for you last episode. I did see
that's
the
right.
comment.
We didn't spoil the game for you last time, so we're gonna answer your question today, Jonah. And he's asked, when faced with a challenge or a puzzle in a video game, what's more important and satisfying to you, solution or completion? That is to say, if you're fighting a boss, what brings more joy? Figuring out the patterns of attacks and the best strategy, or actually killing it. Or in Breath of the Wild, figuring out what you need to do in a shrine, or completing it and getting your shard. So, basically, is it the journey or is it um,
The
the destination?
destination? I guess that's
Yeah.
destination, right? Same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Wow, I've thought a lot about this. I like like r/shower thoughts, where there's people that
Mhm.
just kind of think obscure things
Mhm.
and post them.
Yeah.
I've been like shower thoughting this question for the better part of the last day, and I'm breaking it down because I think this is very complicated.
Mhm.
Or it can be. Maybe that's just me. Um, how do you feel? Do you have any instant thoughts?
I wanna go with immediately take the coward's answer and say a good game will make both of those things. It will make it satisfying to complete and also give you a
Right.
good reward. In general, though, I think I'm definitely drawn more towards the, solution
Mm-hmm.
versus the completion side of it. I definitely do get the completionist feeling in a lot of games, but it's more so like I don't wanna miss things in the game versus, like, I have to get everything,
I don't
if
know
that
if that's
makes
what he's
sense?
talking about here. I think he's talking about like if there's a hard boss in a game, are you more satisfied by like so you're learning a boss pattern like in Elden Ring, you're fighting
Yeah.
Rodon, right? Is it more satisfying for you to figure out how to dodge his attacks
Mhm.
and then like have that click moment of like, "Oh, I finally figured out how to dodge that," or the feeling when you finally complete the fight?
Well, I think it's both, right? Because I think that's it, and then the Breath of the Wild example, it's like, did you enjoy figuring out the shrine puzzle, or did you, like, get excited when you got the reward at the end?
Right, right, right.
So
But
it's
he's
like
not saying
kind of a bit of
completing every
both.
shrine. He's just saying,
Yeah,
yeah. I get okay, we're talking
yeah,
about two different things.
and so, I mean, you bring up Elden Ring, and that's exactly where my mind goes with stuff like this, and, like, Radon Radon is okay, Radon's not the best example because, as I elegantly had been discussing with some friends, if my kind of favorite boss in the game, like Godric, is an elegant dance. Radon is a mosh pit.
Right.
Um, but to use Elden Ring boss as an example, I just love fighting them. I love going in, being unprepared, underleveled, not utilizing all my resources, and just I'll fight them for 3 hours if that's what it takes to beat them, as long as I'm having fun.
Mhm.
And, like, I typically tend towards games like that where I get a lot of enjoyment out of, like, learning the patterns and getting the timings and, like, dodge hit, dodge hit, dodge hit, and, like, it
Yeah.
becomes a rhythm, and I like to explain those games as, like, a beautiful dance that I'm participating in, and so, like, of course, it feels amazing to finally win, like, it feels so good to get that W, especially when it's been a difficult challenge, or especially when you go in and you're like, "I'm gonna try this slightly different strategy," and then that ends up working because you were clever. But at the end of the day, like, I could do it for hours and fight, like, certain bosses, it's so
Yeah.
fun.
Like memorize. So you're definitely more solution, like you like to
I'm definitely
figure it
more
out.
the solution.
See,
If I had to pick, I see the value in both, and I think it's always a combination, but
yeah,
I
that's
would
the important
prioritize the
thing.
solution.
It's always a
Mhm.
combination, but see, I've been breaking it down and like to me, this is an unanswerable question because it completely depends on what the game is that I'm playing. Like if I'm
Mhm.
playing a puzzle game, then I have figuring out I use this as an example as um like Phoenix Wright, you know? Like
Mhm.
Phoenix Wright to me is way more satisfying for its solution rather than completing it because
Yeah.
it's such a satisfying moment to be like, "Oh my god, like I had
Yeah,
this evidence, I figured out like, oh my god, this is how he killed him. Like it's this little
yeah,
piece of text here or something,
it
right?"
clicks.
Like it
Yeah.
clicks and it's so great. But then when you like that's the moment that you get excited there and then when you kind of put the evidence in and you complete the task you get that payoff, but the real payoff to me is having that aha moment
Mhm.
with the evidence that I'm playing. Whereas
Mhm.
whereas for me, it's like to use Elden Ring as an example, or like games like that. See, just action games in general. I'll
Mhm.
use Metroid Dread as an example. That's a
Okay.
salient one, and we don't have to talk about the same games over.
Mhm.
Metroid is a very similar to Elden Ring actually, where you're memorizing the attack patterns of the bosses
Yep.
and you're executing on it, and you're eventually killing the boss. But in an action game, to me, completion is way more satisfying than figuring out the solution because, well, I should back up. This is where it gets shower thoughty, right? Because
Yeah.
um, completing a hard boss to me is so satisfying because you're like, oh my god, I can't believe I got through it. Like I'm done, I beat it. And there's a level of like you have to figure out the patterns within that. But then there's this weird thing that can happen to me where when I figure out the solution in an action game, but I'm not yet able to execute the completion part of it,
Right.
it's actually becomes extremely unsatisfying and becomes very
Mhm.
frustrating because it's like I understand how I'm supposed to do this, but I haven't been able to do it yet. Or like I
Right.
had this other thing, it's same thing happened in like Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze I talked about a few episodes ago where it's like we're on this difficult platforming section and it's like I know I need to jump here. I just mistimed the jump and I've died. And it's like that's like a whole nother area of this where it's like knowing the solution actually makes the completion frustrating until you get there and can be like a slippery slope type of deal too.
Yeah, that's fair, and I would say, like, platformers are like that for me
Yeah.
sometimes, right? Like, I have the old, like, Crash,
Yeah. Oh
bundle,
my
and I'm like,
god.
"Oh my
Yeah.
god, Crash 1, some of those levels are just so
So
punishing,"
hard.
and it's like,
Yeah.
I know I have to, like, jump at the very last second on this, like, the ledge of this to make that jump, but, like, it's just so hard to time it perfectly, and,
Hmm.
like, yeah, you just kinda wanna you just want it to be over, you wanna get past this, you don't have to do it anymore, and you can do something different,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and so, like, I totally understand that. I think for me, how I approach this question is that, like, it's really dependent on the game, but I think
Totally
what
is.
makes it for me isn't what I enjoy more than the other, but what I tend to prioritize playing games.
Hmm.
So for me, like, I tend to play and my favorite games are the games that are the solution where the solution's the most fun.
Right.
And so I think that helps me answer the question as in terms of, like, what I would prioritize.
Yeah, and I think that happens too. Like to me as well. Like you solution versus completion is like if you want to talk about like a game with a really in depth story or something like Lake, which I just talked about before. Like to me, there's not really a solution because there's not really a problem.
Mhm.
But getting to the end of the game and seeing the completion probably isn't as interesting as the solution of like meeting people as you go and getting to know the people in the town. So I don't know if that's
Mhm.
like a really great comparison, but like the journey was more important than the destination when it came to
Yeah.
Lake.
And now yeah, that's interesting. Okay, and so we have games like Breath of the Wild, and I'm gonna throw in, like, Mario Odyssey as another good game for this,
Yeah.
where, like, Breath of the Wild, you go through, like, 1,700,000 shrines and Korok seeds and all those little things, and it's very much just, like here's another one, here's another one,
Yeah.
here's another one. They're
Yeah.
very bite-sized, and you're just, like, amassing this massive amount of things. And same with Mario Odyssey, right? It's like,
Yeah, with the
like,
stars.
here's 900 moons. And so, does that change it in a game like that? That's a game that's kind of built around collectibles?
Well, I mean, I think, this is where we're defining completion different because I don't think he's talking
Right.
about getting everything in a game. I think he's talking about with a specific puzzle, is it more satisfying to have that click moment in your head of like, yeah, I figured out how to do this, now I just need to go and execute it, or is actually getting through it and doing it more interesting?
Right. I guess I'm
Yeah,
extrapolating on that because, like, what makes the reward satisfying is I got another one,
right.
right?
Yeah,
And so,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
to extrapolate that, it's kind of like you are collecting them. It's in
Yeah.
individual
Well, I mean, if we're
instances,
if
but,
we're
like,
talking about completing a list of collectibles, then that's instantly a big for me because I don't give a fuck about collecting anything in
Yeah.
any game, almost
Yeah.
ever.
Goodbye, 600 Assassin's Creed feathers.
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah.
Interesting thing, just to end off, actually, because I think we've. I mean, I don't really have any more points. To me, my
Mhm.
cop out answer is just it depends on the game. It's as
Yeah,
simple
of
as that.
course.
For me. But one interesting about Breath of the Wild, I heard somewhere that apparently there's like more Korok seeds in that game than you actually need because they
Yeah.
want you to like not have to meticulously comb the environment and like find them all. They want you to just
Yeah.
naturally happen upon enough to be able to get what you need without like searching like that, which is
Yes, that
interesting.
that is the design philosophy of it. I think there
Mhm.
is actually something you can get if you get literally all of
Right,
them, but
right.
it's like a joke item. I think it's, like, legitimately a piece of shit or something like that, like,
That's interesting because
because,
I guess
like
they know it's like this isn't really.
yeah,
We know
people
people
are
will do
gonna do
this
it.
because people will like want it 100%, but it's like not what you're supposed to do. I guess that's
Yeah.
interesting to me. I
So
just
it's
like
like it's
fuck that. It's weird.
genuinely a joke, but I
Yeah.
think that's, like, good game design, right? Because if you wanna
Hmm.
get, like in a game like that that's so free to roam around, like Mario Odyssey is a similar kind of idea, right? It's like you need to do the story in each world, and you need to get, like, 30 moons to progress on, but,
Right.
like, okay, there's 60 moons in this level, go nuts.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's a good comparison. I never really thought about that. Anyway, yeah, interesting Korok seed fact for everyone out. If
Yeah.
you would like to write in with a great question like Jonah did, please send your email to circlesandsquarespodcast@gmail.com. Or you can get in touch with us on Twitter, of course, as well at CNSPod. Please let us know whether you prefer to solve the solution of a puzzle or actually complete whatever the task is in a game, because I think this is like really an inarguable answer. Like it's really a chicken or
Mhm.
egg thing, and partially because they're so intertwined. Like with how you play games and like what these really mean for each specific game you're playing. Like Elden Ring, you have to know the solution to complete it. You can't complete it without knowing the solution. Like there's so much push and pull.
Mhm.
So yeah, write in, let us know what you think. It's a good question. We'll be back next week with the next episode of our news show. So who knows what studio PlayStation will have bought by then, or other PlayStation Plus information will have come out. But feel free to check in with that when we release that episode next week. We'll see you all on that one.